Hello everybody, Power here, bringing you my first final thoughts. I'm still working on that name, if you can come up with a good name of what to make it, because I don't want to call it a review, but it is more than that. I don't know. If you got a good name, recommend a name, and I'll run with it. But right now, we're calling it Final Thoughts. And my final thoughts on this game, Shadow Warrior. Shadow Warrior is a modern remake of more reimagining than a remake, because it's not just an updated HD version. It's a complete overhaul, entirely new game, and all that. Of a game that came out in 1997, actually. The original game back in 1997 was very much a knockoff of the Duke Nukem franchise, where it was, it took that alpha personality, and where Duke Nukem, the game was more about the player than it was the environment, whereas Dean was more about the environment than it was the player. I'm sorry, not the player, but the character actually in, right? Who remembers the story of Duke Nukem? There was aliens, and you fought them, you killed them, but that's not what you remember. You remember Duke Nukem, his antics, his lines. Whereas Doom, you get the Marine and whatever his name was and everything. So this was very much more on that, based around the character. Now in this game, you play as Lo Wang, kind of a gunman, samurai for hire, do it anything type personality. If you're paying the right money, he'll get the job done for you. Uh, this game has been redone, or reimagined by a company named Flying Wild Hogs. As far as I know, they've only done this in one other game. That other game was Hard Reset, came out a year or two back. I played 3 or 4 hours of it. It was pretty good, but this game is noticeably better. So let's go ahead and get into it. Right now, I'm actually playing through a New Game Plus version of the game. So I beat it. The base campaign took somewhere around 13 hours for me to get beat. Now, for that game, I went through and I checked basically every nook and cranny. I tried to find every little hidden item. So if you're looking to just burn through it, you could probably get through it in about 10 hours. So figure between 10 and 15 hours, depending on how quickly you play it. It's only a single player game just a single player game. There's no multiplayer or anything. So that's about all you're gonna get. There is some replay value with the New Game Plus. As far as I can tell, you'll never upgrade everything. So built within the game, you have several different upgrades. First of all, every single weapon has upgrades available for it. This is my katana. These upgrades are actually unlocked via the story. Every other upgrade is unlocked via cash. So here's the revolver, which is kind of the primary ranged weapon. I already have it fully unlocked. I have the actions and the single action barrel and all that unlocked for it. If we come over here to the rocket launcher, you can see I didn't buy the laser guidance yet. That costs $3,600. Haven't even begun to upgrade the flamethrower. Other than that, I think I mostly have everything done. You also have powers and skills. Powers are unlocked using key crystals, which are found throughout the environment as you play through. These are things like defensive and healing abilities that you can use while you're playing the game. They're used through different key combinations. Like healing is DD and then right mouse button, so double right and then mouse button. And then he also has a shield, which is double left, so AA and then right mouse button. These are unlocked via key crystals, and lastly, there's skills, which are unlocked via karma points, which you can collect via playing. So as you collect so much karma, you eventually get a point that you can use to unlock things. Certain things, one kill will give you a karma point. So there's these kind of grand demons, and when you kill them, you automatically get a karma point. Now these are a little more direct upgrades, like fire resistance, control pain, so you take less damage. You got healing, so you learn more and stuff. As far as I can tell, there's no way you're going to unlock all these things through one playthrough, unless you're just crazily better at the game than I am, which is perfectly possible. But I've got about half of them unlocked through one playthrough, so you'd have to be twice as good as I am. Let's go ahead. We got one of these to spend. Let's put it on 1 HP drops below. Now, hopefully we're not dying all that much. Doctor, Drain Soul. Katana, I've completely upgraded my sword. We'll get into the sword here in a moment. Headhunter, yeah, let's unlock that. I'm not going to show too much of that stuff because if you're going to play the game, I'd like you to explore and learn that on your own. So, the game itself, runs amazingly well. I have to give them credit here. They have a very well optimized game. Right now, I am running two monitors because I have a little bit of a what's the word I'm looking for? Just a breakout of the key points I want to hit in my video on one screen, the game running on the other screen. I'm running at max settings. Come in here to options, video, and I pretty much have everything set to maximum at 120 hertz outside of 3D and vertical sync. I don't like vertical sync all that much. And at 120 hertz, you don't really need it. But I'm running on basically max settings. Okay, we can up that a little bit. At 120 frames, well, about 100 FPS. With fraps running, it drops down to about 80 or 90, sometimes down as low as 60, but I don't even see it hardly drop below 60 with fraps going and multiple monitors. That's pretty darn good. They could have done far worse. Now, my computer is fairly beefy. It is a 770 NVIDIA and a quad-core Intel i5 at 4.2 gigahertz. But for the most part, if you have a discrete video card, you should be able to at least get something around 60 FPS somewhere in those settings by adjusting that. And that's key because what we're about to see, we're about to jump down in this area. That's why I'm hanging out here. This is kind of the first mini boss you fight. Boss is the wrong word. This demon I'm going to end up fighting here, this big dude, he becomes common later on. But he's kind of a super demon compared to the guys behind him are all, you know, just regular schmucks, these guys that I can kill in one shot. This guy's a bit more powerful. And he's the first one. Later on, you'll get into battles where you fight 2 or 3 of them at a time. Not much more than that, though. And he's pretty strong. Well, as you can see, as I'm bouncing around here all over the place, you need a pretty high frame rate in order to keep this from getting disorienting. Because when you're jumping all over the place, you can't be running at 20 frames per second, or you're going to get a little nauseous, or at least I would get a little nauseous. Let's pull out the shotgun here and unload on him, see what this does. Yeah, didn't like that, did you? So, as you can see here, I tend to use the sword, and this is really, for the game, this is the single strongest point of the entire game. This sword, they have done melee combat in a first-person game like I have never seen, where it is so unbelievably satisfying. You can just mow through these guys, they break apart, you get all these points for it. It is great. And it's unfortunate because it actually emphasizes probably the weakest point of the game, which is the guns. The shotgun's okay, the crossbow's also okay, but a lot of the guns are just kind of average. Pull out the dual Uzis, which this is a classic gun from the original Shadow Warrior, was the dual Uzis. And they get the job done, but there's just nothing that great about them. They don't have that feel that the sword does. And while it is a negative and a positive at the same time, the one thing I can say is for 13 hours or so to play through the game, the sword is actually plenty strong enough in order to carry it all the way through. You can pretty much, other than there's a few different mobs where they fly around you, whatever, where you have to use the gun, you can use the sword to kill, I'd say 85 to 90% of everything you fight. And it's actually the best way to do it because it's just the most enjoyable. And then you use the guns a little bit when you need to, and then you go on from there. And it's good enough to carry it that way. Just doing a little bit of searching around here. So the game itself is based on a linear story, based around linear environments, that is actually well done. I know linear's kind of become a negative term in the industry lately, or everyone is trying to be branching and all this and that. And you know what? The story in this game for a first-person shooter is actually pretty darn good. It's not amazing, but it's well enough done that it carries the game from zone to zone. It lets you know what you're doing. It explains why you're in one area or the other area, so as it transitions from there to there. Lo Wang is fairly interesting. I enjoyed him. Duke Nukem tends to get on my nerves after about 30 minutes. Throughout the entire game, I liked Lo Wang, where he's not overconfident, he's cocky, he's cocky just like Duke Nukem, but it's hard to explain. It's a different manner that I didn't find him annoying. He never got on my nerves. There's almost an endearing factor about him that he's cocky for. He's not overcompensating like Duke Nukem can sometimes come across as. Uh, so yeah. So the story itself, again, like I said, it's not. You're not going to be blown away by the story. It's not Bioshock Infinite type story, but it is better than, I would say, 95% of the shooters out there that I've ever played. The characters are well done. They're fairly well voiced. Now, I don't know if the voicing of Lil Wang would have been all that hard, because if you can play cocky, you can pull him off, and it would have worked just well. And so the voice acting might not be great, but it didn't have to be great to show Lo Wang. And so that works. The demon actually is also fairly well done. I haven't really shown the demon. He shows up when he wants to for story scenes. Doesn't actually come into play for combat, other than he gives you your abilities to heal. And you can see my sword throw here, where I can cut guys down. I can do a wave across the ground and creates a saw blade that shoots out. He gives you the ability to do that, but once you have him, you just have that ability. And so he only really shows up in cutscenes, and there's not actually a lot of cutscenes. It's almost all in-engine as you move from one zone to the next. There's a few brief 30-second cutscenes here or there, but the game, the story occurs via the gameplay. As you're playing through, you'll get the story. There's a few sequences loading between where it's kind of done in I would say an Okami-den, that Nintendo game, I believe it was Nintendo, with the wolf, so that Japanese art style. There's a few cutscenes done in that, but for the most part, it's all via game. And I found it to be surprisingly enjoyable. I think I've said that about 3 times now. Gonna have to not repeat myself so much in future videos, but we'll see. So the linearity of the levels, it's been considered a bad thing recently. I actually kind of got to the point where I liked it, because I always knew I was going from here to there. Now I could take as much time as I wanted between here and there to search these buildings, and I didn't have Sarge standing over at the door yelling at me to come over and blow the door up because we had to get to the next set piece. I could take my time, I could find all the lost money so I could upgrade my weapons, I could find all the crystals and everything so I could have the most abilities ready to go, and I really just liked it. And it's a bit of a downside. There's a few places where I wish the world was a little more open, but for 90% of it, it works perfectly well the way you would expect, and it does it very well. There are several, I think 3, maybe 4, I'm trying to remember, little bosses that you have to fight. Not little, full-blown bosses. Let me correct that. Full-blown bosses where you'll catch them in a large open area, basically a designed arena that you have to fight. These boss fights are not great. They kind of pull away from the best part of the game. The best part of the game is just running in with your sword and going to town on mobs like we're about to here. Try not to get blown up by the vehicles. But this is where the game shines, just mowing through guys with your sword, and Lo Wang saying funny comments as he's cutting people down. These boss fights, you can't do it that way. They all have kind of what I consider the Mario thing, where they'll show you their weak spot, and then you have to exploit it 3 times, and then you win. So there'll be like a weak spot in their armor, and you shoot that, and then it'll expose something, and you hit that, and once you destroyed it 3 times, then you win the battle. And they're just not that good. But again, there's only 3 or 4 of them, and then you're done with them, and each one only takes 5, maybe 8 minutes. So it's only a very minor part of the game. You spend less than 30 minutes overall fighting these bosses for a 13-hour game. That's not too bad. And none of them are all that difficult. You can just do them and move on with playing the game and mowing through guys with your sword. The other slight downfall, and this will go a little bit into the combat. Actually, I think if I remember right, we're about to get to a good point to show it. And I don't know. There was a fortune cookie. I want my fortune cookie. The fortune cookies all have funny lines. Oh well, I missed it. And its combat it's not instanced, but it's kind of grouped. So I think we're going to come across a group up here. Basically, there's groups of enemies, and once you've engaged one of them, they all keep coming. They all keep spawning until they're all dead. So once you've engaged them, there's no stopping and going back over. And what it prevents is there's no way to, with the sword, with the crossbow, you'd figure there'd be some way to do some silent attacks and you could whittle down and take a different approach at fighting them. You really can't. Once you've killed the first guy, even if you did it silently, they all know you're there, and until they're all dead, it just keeps coming. So, it limits the way you can approach the fights. Basically, you either go in guns blazing or you go in sword swinging. And outside of that, there's no other option. And then once it's over, right there, you get a little report for your karma bonus and everything. I like that they did that way for some things. There'd be nice areas where like you open to a courtyard and you get that type of event. But there would also be nice if there were points in the game where you were able to kind of just go about it a little bit slower, take a different pace to it rather than being forced to just mow through everything. So these guys, are they all dead? Nope, this one's still alive. But there we go, some more. Spawning all around me. And you'll see here again, it would have been nice to break this up, not have to kill everything at once. I think that's probably my only real true complaint about the combat. I can deal with the bosses. They're minor, there's only a few of them. And I like fighting some of that instance combat, but I wish there was a few more points where I didn't have to fight all of them at once. I could change up the pacing a little bit. But all in all, I have to say, for a $40 title, came from a relatively small company. I wouldn't call them an indie, but they're definitely not a big company. I have been completely blown away by this game. The story, while nothing that you're going to remember for years to come, it's no Knights of the Old Republic, it's no Bioshock Infinite, it is a very good story for a first-person shooter game. The sword combat is better than I believe any first-person combat has ever done melee weapons. The voice acting is well enough done to where it doesn't detract from the game. And all in all, if you're even slightly interested in first-person shooters, I have to strongly recommend this game. If you enjoy first-person shooters, but they're kind of not your thing, maybe wait for it to go on sale for $15, $20. But I think this is a must-play for anybody that enjoys shooters and are looking for a throwback to a little more classic time of when first-person shooters weren't set piece to set piece. It was more, here's the world, go explore and have fun with it. So that is my take on Shadow Warrior. Now you can watch me mow down these guys until I end the video. Thank you very much for watching. This is my first video, so any recommendations on how to improve it would be great, because I know there's going to be a lot of places I can improve. And thank you.